Okay, 6:30. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our first meeting of 2020. Welcome, Bronwyn, Lucy, and also thank you for this great idea. My back will thank you for that also. Will you please rise if able and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Andrew Benson. Here. Doug Day.
Here.
Brian Wilsey. Here. Joseph Wetmore.
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. Everyone here is okay? So our first item will be privilege of the floor. This is limited to 20 minutes with a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. I have one person that has signed up, Lynn Davidson. If anybody else wants to speak after him, please come to the front and give us your name and address so I can fill it in. So Lynn, would you like to step forward, please?
I'm Lynn Davidson, 1524 Ridge Road as of now, speaking as a citizen, a landowner, and a diligent taxpayer.
Thank you.
I'm speaking from the heart. There's been much cry and public criticism of the perceived indifference of the planning board in response to citizens' complaints and concerns about event centers. I concur that all boards can be better communicators. It's very important, and it's something all of us as people have to work on. The job of the planning board here is very difficult. Town law allows event centers as a matter of right. The event center, by definition, comes with baked-in rights of impact. There's going to be lights, there's going to be parking, there's going to be traffic. The new variant is an uninsulated, non-air-conditioned building that pushes that impact. We used to look at North 40, Lake Watch, look at the Lansingville Firehouse. That's something. Yes, traffic, yes, some impact, no big deal. But here we have, I would presume on an 85-degree day, open doors, open windows, and an empty building rocking along with noise pouring out. The site plan tool that the planning board has to reduce impact just doesn't work here. We beg the applicant to set voluntary hours of operation. We have no way, according to council, to touch that. The public is upset. I mean, we have to beg to get 2 weeks' notice for a fireworks display. The public's upset. You let emotion and a hard law act together, I don't care how you communicate, it's incendiary. And what really woke me up is looking back, looking up, looking down at 20,000 feet as a citizen. This is beyond the planning board issue. Where is the town board? They look at us to be a planning board that does a better job. Law is the purview of this town board. Your law, with due respect, allows this to happen. September 10, 2018 planning board meeting. Dutch Harvest. These issues were brought up. These issues were brought up by me. Other issues about neighborhoods, even got in the newspaper. Why not a moratorium at that time to muddle through this issue? You're all supposed to be looking ahead for the town. Maybe we can't do anything about it, but let's start. Why and where is a noise ordinance to shut this annoyance down at 9 p.m.? It's a town board issue. Where's the fireworks ordinance? After problems at John Joseph and in Aurora, think about your people with PTSD. Loose animals running down Route 90. Cows are having problems with broken partitions in the barn and loose animals. Dead sheep in Aurora. Just to add in, I mentioned sky lanterns. Jan 1st, 2020, Krefeld, Germany. Celebratory sky lanterns that many of these wedding venues let loose. What happened? Came down in a primate sanctuary in Krefeld, burned up 30 gorillas, apes, chimps. What about a wheat field? What about a barn? What about somebody's house? Yeah, I'm an NIMBY. There will be citizen action if the town board doesn't do something. And it's purely out of the planning board hands. I thank you. Just for impact, Osmika, to Kathy Barron, Bill Carey, 387 feet. Trish and Richard Renevery, 796 feet. 1524 Ridge Road, Lynn and Kristen, 1,274 feet. Catherine up on Emmons Road, and the guy with the Angus cattle, 2,715 feet. Osmika to my house at 1181 Ridge Road, it's pretty good, 3,461 feet. We're all in this, folks. Something's got to happen. Thank you. Just to make your life easier, I've got a pre-written fireworks ordinance, so you don't have to work too hard, Mr. Crow. And Make It Work in Albany, Village of Aurora's enacting it soon. Probably there'll be some tweaking. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else want to exercise privilege of the floor? If not, we'll close it and move on to item number 5 in our packets, the resolution. Reappointing Dean Shea as town of Lansing Planning Board member for a 7-year term, and reappointing Thomas Butler as a first alternate planning board member for 1 year, and Dale Baker for a second alternate planning board member for a 1-year term. Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'm not ready to move forward on this, and if you'd like to discuss an executive session, I'd like to do that.
Does it fall under the category of executive session?
Talking about the performance of an individual.
We can move it. If that's okay with the rest of the board.
What do you mean by move?
We can move it to executive session.
Okay, so you want to do that now, just go into another room?
Or we want to do it at the end? What do you propose since you brought up this?
I'm fine either way, so whatever people would prefer. I know Debbie doesn't like us moving things around in the agenda too much.
I mean, that's up to you, but one of the, just so you know, one of the organizational resolutions
Okay.
does mention the people that are on the different boards, so.
Why don't we just go into another room for a couple of minutes and discuss this? I move that we go to executive session and discuss the performance of individuals.
Okay, a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Board?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Off we go.
Guy, you want to come with us, please?
Sure.
Okay, we'll resume our meeting. So, we're now on item 5. And there'll be some changes to this. Get your sharp pencil up.
I brought 2 pens tonight.
So we are going to postpone item number 5 for a month.
Okay.
Now, in that time period, there has been scheduling done for this training. There's also my understanding that the people that have not had their training, which is 2 people, or should I also say 3?
It's up to you.
Okay, so there's 3. There's Guy, there's not picking on anybody, First Sheldon, and also Dean Shea. They are going to be required to take their training this year.
Which training?
This is the sensitivity training. They're also, the other trainings are also managed by the state. This is something they're doing at the town level. We also have they also have to do an additional training for this year, as we all are. But also we will have hopefully a local law by our next meeting that states that every town board, ZBA member, and planning board member has to have their training done in a year. Otherwise, if their training is not done in that year, there will be numerous suggestions of doing it, and there will be numerous attempts, right, from our planner to do this. Then we will start the process to remove that person from the board. The reason,
3 people didn't do it last year?
and the reason that they didn't was it was planned. This is, in all fairness, this is not thumbing their nose at the authorities or me, which I would have been furious if that was the case, which I'm not. It was scheduled, and there was a storm that night, and it was an innocent mistake. So I think in the future, because the people that, for instance, that are on this item number 5 can still participate on the planning board as an active member. There has to be a checks and balances to say, there has to be some assurance for the citizens that you will get your training done this year. Otherwise, it would go on and on and on, and he wouldn't be reappointed, but he would be still an active member. So a lot of times what we try to do is where there's a teachable moment, we try to go the extra mile to make sure that we can cover all of the things. We've had tremendous support from our planning board members, which I appreciate, but this isn't penalizing anybody. They can still be members and be active participants and be voting members. They simply need to get their training done this year. So that's the explanation. Are we okay with that? So you're going to have to make some adjustments in the other resolution. So the other resolution will stay the same for...
Guys got some language.
Yeah, I gave you the language when you get to it.
Okay. So, something to look forward to. Okay. Number 6. This is the organizational resolutions. So, Guy, I'm going to need your guidance on this, no pun intended. But how much of this do we have to read out to everyone, and how much of it, not to be disrespectful, but how much of this do we, I mean, there's 50 of them?
Yes.
I'm not aware of a requirement that you have a duty to read organizational resolutions. Some municipalities do it, very few do, in my experience. Some simply highlight the changes, and some make sure they're available well before the meeting so other people can review them and perhaps address something in privilege of the floor if they wish. Traditionally, Lansing has evolved historically towards the more modern version, and that is to do it by a consent agenda unless one item or another is worthy of highlighting or discussion. And here, 36 and 37 will have a couple of minor modifications as was discussed.
Correct.
But other than that, if there's anything people want to highlight as a change, I mean, it's relatively obvious that some of the fees have changed, some of the schedules have changed. But in large part, I'm not sure anything material has changed, but I guess that's a matter of perspective. There have been some tweaks. For example, one, so that the public knows, we have a resolution that identifies who are all the enforcement officers for the different local laws and ordinances. But the one for the zoning office, the zoning law, land use ordinance, identified who was the enforcement officer, or for whatever reason, it had never before said who was the zoning officer. And a zoning officer and an enforcement officer are not necessarily the same thing. So we added it. Not really a big change. It doesn't change anything. It's just more language. So that's an example.
So what comfort level are we at here?
I have some questions through it, so maybe we can jump to my questions. If other people have questions, we can just kind of work our way through.
Okay.
My first question is on appointment of a deputy supervisor. And right now we have 0 in there to not be paid. And there's been some discussion as to whether the deputy supervisor actually has to do activities. You know, if you step out, then we should pay the deputy supervisor, but I don't know how that works in terms of town law. And so I was hoping the guy could help walk us through that. You know, if we have an appointed deputy supervisor with a 0 salary at the moment, is that in compliance with town law? And if at some point the deputy supervisor actually has to spend some time working as deputy supervisor, can the town board at that point put some compensation towards the deputy supervisor?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So town law section 42 governs how deputy supervisors are handled. So town board has 2 pieces of authority that it undertakes in connection with that duty. One is to create the office, allow it to exist. And the other is, when someone is appointed to that office, to authorize the power of the purse, to assign a salary incident to that office. Since the office already exists and the appointment is at the will of the supervisor, if you're not assigning a salary to the position right now, then you don't even need a resolution. Because there's nothing for the town board to approve. If you want to think it over and determine what would be an appropriate salary that's incident to that office, then put a number in it. If in fact you set it at 0 and then you're going to change it mid-year, then you're talking about budget modifications and you can increase the salaries, you can't decrease them. There's a lot of rules you jump through when you do that. If you want to convert it from a salary to a stipend, you know, paid when working or paid per meeting or something like that, that would require something more. That would be superseding local law, like you would have to do if you wanted to pay planning board members per meeting as opposed to a salary incident to their office.
So we're fine leaving it the way it is, what you're saying?
You're fine leaving it the way it is, but if a salary is to be incident to the office, it would be better to put the number in right now. That's all I'm saying.
It seems as though this is, we already had this discussion, it's not, this is the 50-mile spare tire. This is something in case, God forbid, there's a stroke or whatever, which I'm not volunteering for, to see if this works. They'll just say, in case of emergency, this is what you do. And we've already been through this once. My first meeting, my wife had surgery. So, of course, newly elected Supervisor Levine, this is me. Plaster all over this paper. Not digging into why I was with my wife, but that was irrelevant. I missed the meeting. So I reached out, I think, to Robert at the time. I said, can you run the meeting? Now, the reality is, if I drop dead, or I'm, God forbid, in ICU and I can't function, you're going to meet and figure this out. And life will, and Doug can sign, at least he will if we approve it, so he'll be able to sign these checks also. So there are checks and balances along the way in case that happens. So for the stipend, if you want to put that in for language in the future, whatever, that if all of a sudden you have to take over for 3 months, here's your stipend for that. Those are all negotiable.
He said it's more probably fees than stipend.
Yeah, and I don't know what, or do we just go along,
It's a salary incident to the office.
do we go along now, and then come budget time, have a discussion about salary? Because it really should have been discussed during budget time, and that's my fault as anyone's, to do that. Because as we're getting busier, you know, and maybe that's something that the responsibility has become more and more for the deputy, if that deputy wants it. I mean, the other thing is that right now, I mean, I'm going to be available a lot more than I was, 2 months ago. So, on the other hand, you never know. So we try to catch all the different contingencies. So for right now, if you want to hold it, I don't know, I don't know. You want to hold it the way it is, and then if something happens, you can, I don't want to just say, oh, it's going to be okay.
I think it's easy, if it's easy to put in after the fact, and just leave it at 0 now.
Okay.
If something happens, God forbid, we can set a salary.
Yeah, we've done it with other positions where the responsibility is increased, or the workload's increased, and we said, geez, I need a part-time or whatever. So there are ways you can do this, so.
I'm okay with that. I have a slightly different question. If we're going to have a deputy supervisor, should that deputy supervisor be the other signatory on checks as opposed to Doug? Just a thought.
Well,
Not that I've seen Doug sign in the checks that I've noticed, but I'm sure he signs them occasionally.
I don't know, have you?
I don't think you've ever signed.
I think I've signed.
I haven't seen any. But it just seems to make sense that you have a supervisor and deputy supervisor. It's not a big deal. I'm just trying to.
Why don't you do 3, in case we're both gone? What if both of us go on vacation? You need something done. Is that too much of a stretch that the deputy supervisor, have Doug and myself, be the signer of checks? Does that work for everybody? Or is it over?
Within reason, you can appoint whoever you want. I mean, there are villages where every trustee has the authority to sign a check. There are towns and villages where you might sign only certain checks, and different people do different things, but no, that's not unreasonable.
I had no dog in this fight.
As long as you have an auditing trail so that you
Well-
can check that all 3 people
Well-
have used the privilege, you should be fine.
Well, to your point, you did it the other day, which means in the future, you probably shouldn't be doing the audit. Somebody else should be doing the audit because now you're the deputy and you're signing, right?
Well, I think as long as you have one person who's not a signatory, or if all of us are signatories, then there's really no fit. But I think you need at least one town board member who's not a signatory doing the audit, and I certainly try to put my time in on that.
I don't care. Either way, because you know what? We get audited enough, so it's fine. I mean, either way, whatever the comfort level is here, I don't care. We just make a decision on that.
I think it's fine just to have 2.
Okay? What else, Joe?
So do you want that resolution just say the way it is then, or what?
Yes.
So this way, go ahead.
Stays with us.
Okay, after 2010, I would like to add a resolve that says the public will be given the opportunity to address the town board up to 3 minutes per person on any issue of concern near the beginning of every town board meeting. Immediately after the public comment board period, each town board member will be given 2 minutes to respond to public comment. The post-public comment discussion will be limited to the members of the town board unless the town board waives this by majority rule.
Any thoughts on this?
I think it makes it feel more like a discussion than, I think it can make it be more approachable for people.
Anybody else? Personal thoughts, this really isn't organizational. This is something that we should discuss a little bit more in detail, considering you sent the email last night. This is something to consider. I too feel uncomfortable in a way that, not uncomfortable, but as we tell people, we're not going to respond to this. But on the other hand, there's nothing to say that we somehow can adjust this a little bit so that, okay, we'll research this and then put it on our agenda for the near future. Things of that nature. My concern is all of a sudden we start going back and forth here, and next thing you know, you're herding cats, because especially if it's a hot item. Because now you've engaged. Now they're going to engage back. And here we go. And that is the concern I have. That doesn't mean we're going to be disrespectful. And there have been times when I've said, we're not going to respond now. We're not being disrespectful, but we have to listen to what you have to say, because sometimes we have to research this. If there is what some people have done is that after privilege of the floor, you have 3 minutes for each board member to say whatever they want to say, which is different than this. Yes, let me just listen to me.
understand.
What I'm saying is that after all the privilege of the floor is done, we each can have 3 minutes to respond to whatever we want. But you're speaking as a board member, because I'd be very careful that you don't speak as the town board when you give an answer. So it protects the town if you say, okay, Mrs. Jones, pertaining to this, okay, pertaining to your mailbox, we have talked to, this is what the situation is there. But you're talking as a board member as opposed to the whole town. So as opposed to someone with privilege of the floor, they're going back and forth. So you'll have 3 minutes to respond to whatever you want to talk about, up to 3 minutes on that, after privilege of the floor right away, so people don't think that they're getting blown off.
I think that's what I'm asking for.
Perhaps you're at 6 and I'm at half a dozen. which may be saying the same thing, but I want to separate that from the town responding to
Yeah.
each concern right away.
No.
I want to close
Yes.
it, and then say, board members are now responding as a board member, not as a town board.
That's what I'm asking for.
I like that.
That's what I'm asking for. I think it's appropriate to put it in here because this is our organizational rules of how we operate. And what we're going to say is, public speaks, everybody says their 3 minutes, and then we all get 2 minutes after every public member is done. Not individually, but after the whole group. After the whole group's done, we get to say, oh, that was a good idea, let's explore that, or
I'd rather widen that lens and say you can speak for 3 minutes.
okay.
You can, up to 3 minutes, or you can say, you know what, I'm going to write this down and get back to you next week, thank you.
Mhm.
You responded, you were respectful, and then there's no more back and forth on that, and then that's it. If we're comfortable with that, without a little tweaking, my apologies.
So is this, so the town board person, is each member of the town board is going to
Do
get
you want to,
3 minutes?
Well-
Does that change from 2 to 3?
well, once again, we want to visit this next month. It's a month, because she's trying to write this down now.
Well, I have this.
I haven't made any of that.
Okay,
I think we should just do it.
all right. As long as we understand that we're speaking as a board member,
After.
that the board members or the town clerk has a chance to respond up to 3 minutes after the privilege of the floor is closed.
Yes.
You're moving it from two, I said 2 minutes, and you're giving it 3.
Yes.
I'll go with 2. Okay. I know me better than you, Joe, so 2 minutes would be really good, okay? So 2 minutes would be fine.
2 minutes.
Yeah, that way we look at 10 minutes, and it's already an hour, that's okay.
Okay. Okay,
So you want that put as number 20-11 then?
yeah. Unless you want to put it at the very end, if that's better for you, I'm fine.
It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter, because we're going to bundle them all anyways.
Okay, so that's where I would stick it, because it's right next to one of the our meetings.
Okay. Anything else, Joe?
I noticed that you took out that we're reluctantly designating the journal.
That's the advice of our attorney,
Okay.
to remove the word reluctantly. So I understand how it came about.
Yep, I understand.
Okay.
I had a minor sort of procedural thing. Resolution 2045,
21?
45.
Can I just say,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
I want to go through here and have you.
Got it. Oh, okay, sorry.
I mean, this is tough enough for our clerk.
Got it.
So any others that you're on?
Oh, I got a bunch. Resolution 20-30.
So we're good all the way up to 30?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you added Parks and Recreation, and Andra and I were talking, and maybe we want to add code enforcement as another place where someone might bounce a check, and we want to be able to add the $20 check fee.
30.
31.
Yeah, 20, 30.
Right next to it.
That's actually 32, which will down be
32.
33.
Yeah, we're going to stay with these numbers, and they'll change. them.
Right, but that's number 32. right?
Yeah,
Okay, so,
I'm just saying the code enforcement office as well, maybe we need to just make this more generic and say, any check to the town, get a $20,
Any check that bounces.
that bounces, yeah. 'Cause I-
it's okay with me. I did check with Charmaine. I'm not sure I checked with anybody in the code office, and kind of the general consensus is that they really don't have checks that bounce.
Mhm.
I know the rec department has had a handful or less. I've had a handful or less. By law, I'm allowed to charge it. I wasn't sure what the other departments were doing, but
It just seems like it should be consistent.
it's fine with me.
Please.
Just make it townwide.
Townwide, that's
I
what
mean,
we're
that's
saying.
what the bank charges, just townwide.
Townwide,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Whether it's highway, whatever else, it's just one.
Yep.
Okay. That works for me. 2038.
Okay.
I've been on the board for 2 years. I've never heard a report from the Lansing Housing Authority. I asked if we could get one. I see that you're adding 2 new people to the board here, and I would like to wait to add Dennis Mogul and Kathy Overton.
They're already on there. They were added last year by resolution.
They're added, okay. I would like to hear a report about the Lansing Housing Authority at some point.
Okay, so let me give you an update.
Okay,
I have asked Connie, she says yes, she will.
okay, excellent.
She's coming in February, I spoke to her also.
Okay, I didn't hear that, so I appreciate that, thank you.
Now, this is why we have these meetings, it's okay.
Okay, I see under the ethics board, we're adding Greg Travis.
Greg Travis.
The numbers are, which
Uh,
numbers?
it's
Well, the reason we're
2040.
doing this is because Tom Jones is going to be leaving. But Tom Jones hasn't got back to me on the ethics concern that we had back in November.
Mhm.
So I thought it'd be inappropriate for him all of a sudden to get off the board when I haven't heard anything, nor am I inquiring. I'm waiting for them to come to me with that decision. Greg Travis used to be the chair of the ZBA, amongst other things. And that is why I put him on there to perhaps take the place of Tom Jones, because he wants to step down.
And I think while there's something pending, we shouldn't change the nature of the ethics board. I would like to, I've been thinking about changing it just because I think, I was talking to Guy about this, the state's going to
Yep,
eventually.
I know where you're going with this, yes.
And I
yes.
said, and my thought was, I'll wait till that issue is over, because I don't think we should change the board in mid-process.
Okay, why don't we do this then? Why don't we leave it the way it is and have Mr. Travis in the bullpen waiting to come in if possible, but also open it up to the town to see if anybody else wants to apply for the ethics board.
I'm good with
And
that.
I'll use it as a segue to with the planning board. They used to do this. I'm not throwing stones at Jerry or anybody else, but this transition year wasn't the year where they opened it up to everybody. This was the first year, and I kind of leave the boards to run themselves. So once again, another teachable moment from another board to say, if you have an opening up, okay, here's the application process and here's the notification. Okay?
Okay.
So I think if you want to leave it the same and not put Mr. Travis on for now, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we'll just skip Mr. Travis for now.
So it's just a simple one line.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. What else, Joe?
When we get over to 2048, my questions are really, and I don't understand this well enough, of who's a code enforcement officer, who's a stormwater management officer, and has this been adapted because we now have CJ in that office, and is her title appropriate for some of these? And I'm not really clear, and that's why I was asking who these folks are and how CJ fits into this list of officers who can enforce these things.
Do you have any in particular?
I don't actually know specifically who the stormwater management officer is now, because I thought that changed a little bit, and so I
That's
don't.
Lynn.
That's Lynn?
Floodplain was different. That's what
Floodplain.
we changed at the beginning of the year. Yep, that's, I think, the last one.
And my question is it appropriate to put you in any of these positions?
I think I've covered on almost anything that would need to, or needs to play a part. I think communications local law, subdivision local law, floodplain control, land use law, land use ordinance.
I'm just thinking in the instance where Lynn might be on vacation or something, and something comes up, do we want to put you in any of these so that we're covered during those periods?
Leave that to the town board if you wish.
Well, since this has been out there for a while, I want to have this discussion now. This is not being disrespectful. We have you in place now. We can revisit it this year in
Okay.
a more thorough, more detail. That will put everybody in a different comfort zone. In the meanwhile, we can still be functional.
I see Guy raising his hand.
You know, I mean, you can always add someone later,
Okay.
but the majority of what's listed here is what is based on what's written in that particular local law. So it's not something you would just change here. You would go back and look at how to change your local law or in 2020 your code. Mainly what this is here for is to keep a record of who's got what title, and if someone leaves to spot it annually, as well as if somebody from the public has a question like, well, who do I go to for bingo? Oh, there it is. I go to the town clerk. So it's more informational, and it's also a quick check for the board. Are these the appropriate people? Is there a local law that needs to be changed? Do we still have a building inspector versus a code enforcement officer, that kind of stuff?
Well, that's kind of what got me is, now that we have CJ, do we need to adjust any of this because we changed that office since we did this last? And so I'm fine with us looking at it over the course of the year, but exactly what you said. I looked at this and said, we need to change because the office has changed.
That's why I added the zoning officer information, because it wasn't in there. And I know that that designation had been made at a prior meeting last year.
Well, this also might give you some time to research these.
The item that the guy's speaking about was added at the bottom of local law 1 of 2015.
It's the big long one on the
It's
top.
on the top of the page 12.
With all due respect, I mean, just for the rest of the board that maybe isn't aware, I mean, obviously, one of my fellows is fully trained and up to date for the code. It's, code and building inspection stuff too. So just for all your knowledge, in the event that something happened and Lynn, God forbid, couldn't come in for a week or something, we do have stuff we put in place 4 or 5 years ago.
But is he authorized to?
What's that?
Is he authorized to enforce code? I think right now just Lynn is.
He's authorized to do fire inspections. And one of the things is that this actually happened this year, I believe, when Lynn went on vacation, that this gentleman was in the office doing the work. Now, does that answer your question? No. But it also says that he is involved in that transition. So once again, this gives us time to do some more research to see at what level of capacity these two individuals are. Okay? Next.
Oh. I think I'm good. I just noticed that.
Excuse me?
I think I'm good. I just noticed
Excuse
that.
me?
I'm just noticing that Deb has been taking more money this year than last year substantially. And part of that is the dog enumeration, but, water and sewer is up. And I'm just noticing I compared the two.
That's your segue.
The town clerk, yeah, I'll just chime right in. The town clerk actually took in about $14,000 more this year than last year, and almost all of it was because of the dog enumeration and licensing the dogs out there that were licensed and tickets and things like that. It was a big chunk of change.
It was.
Yeah.
How many dogs is that? That's a lot of dogs.
I honestly, we lost track. We were so busy, we couldn't believe how many dogs that were not licensed that surfaced during this dog enumeration.
Okay, if there's nothing else, Andra? Rowan, you're up.
I have a minor thing. 2045, it just says that the following persons remain as members of the advisory committee on the power plant future, and my name's in there. There wasn't anything before now naming me a member of it, so I wanted that.
We'll just put will.
Yeah.
Just whatever. We'll take the word remain. Or our members of, how about we'll just put persons are members of that.
And I think this is probably, I'm just not understanding something. The park and marina fee schedule.
What page are you
It's, see, I'm looking at the old one.
How about the new one that's in there?
Page 16.
on? Okay.
It just says that the transient docking residents are free and there's nothing shown for non-residents. Is that not allowed for non-residents, or is it not, is it supposed to be the same?
Yeah, sorry, it's $2 an hour for it.
Everybody, oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was,
Yep.
So do we want to correct, do we want to make a note there? Because it isn't clear that now.
Yeah, if you want to just put $2 an hour in the column, clear.
Okay.
that's all.
Okay. Good? I'm fine. Okay, so we have some adjustments to make on a couple of these resolutions. 20-36. And Guy, if I misspeak, please, be my wordsmith and come in and clean it up. So 2036, it will be, and I guess it also goes to 2037, because one goes to the planning board, one goes to the ZBA. So this will be for both, correct?
Correct.
Resolve that subject to training requirements and formal resolutions for reappointment, that the following residents will go from there, is that correct?
Correct.
I will pass that down.
Thank you.
Yeah, pieces.
So where's,
That's 20-36 and 20-37.
So right after the that and the resolve on the planning board. and the
Right here.
ZBA, right, this phrase would come in, subject to training requirements and resolutions for
the following residents or members?
Right, we're just reciting who's on the board for public purposes, but technically, they all have to meet their training requirements, and there are some on each board that are subject to reappointment, so,
Okay.
so we don't want to appoint them if they haven't been appointed.
Is there anything else, Deb, do you
So,
want to
so
add?
I do have a question. So, people that are on this board that have not completed the training are not really considered part of the board yet? Is that my understanding?
If I understand this right, is that they will continue to be active members of the board, but our goal is to bring forth a resolution stating that if this training, the sensitivity training, is not completed this year, that these people will be, that the process for termination will begin.
Okay, so.
But that's coming up in our next meeting for that.
Right, but,
So yes, they are active members right now. So for
All right.
instance, Perf, Guy, and also Dean will still be active members with respect to the boards or the town board.
okay. All right, so I was more concerned about swearing somebody new in, but I guess that's not going to happen until right now. Okay, all right. So I'm clear on all that.
Okay. Just to be clear that whoever has not completed the 2019 training will also have to do an additional training for 2020 on that, okay? Guy, you have anything to add?
No, I already reviewed it.
Or anything else pertaining to this? Okay. The corrections, I would say corrections, the adjustments are in red. Some of the stuff you've gone through, CJ, with Lynn, also with building permit schedules and everything. Do we want to move on to agenda number 7, which is adopting these?
Sure, let's do it.
God bless you. Okay. I'll second. All right, so.
Joe actually seconded. Right, Andrew, you made the motion and Joe seconded.
I'll third. I got a third, if I got a fourth and a fifth, but I got 3 already, we're good. Yeah. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. So, resolution is 21 to 51. We have a motion and a second. You want to take the roll, or is it all in favor?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Doug Hay?
Yes.
Brian Wilson?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Next item here in your packet, we have our Louise Immense historical report. And now we go to item number 9, which is Lisa Campbell and the Tompkins County Youth Board. Item 10 is the library report. Andrew, do you want to add anything to that?
No.
Okay. 11 is the youth report. 12 is Mike Sigler. I don't, is he here? No, he had.
He's coming back. I just sent him a text and told him we're ready.
Okay, let's move down to the end of the reports. If he's not done by then, we'll move on. That brings us to Park and Rec, and that would be Mr. Terrell. How are those camper shifts doing?
Camping is going great. We've probably taken in about $30,000 already, and July 4th is sold out already, so
We're a popular place now.
it's been busy, yeah.
Good for you.
Yes, I'm very good. Just an update on the digital sign. I had to do a little fabrication to make the existing poles work, so that should be done shortly. Other than that, we've just been doing camping and pavilions and lots of reservations lately. So.
I'm going to, while you're here, I'm going to use this segue. We have a resolution. My apologies. I read the wrong number for your salary. It's in the budget, because I'm not making this stuff up. So we wouldn't have as our dear plan would say, oopsie. Okay? As far as that goes.
Forgive me.
Yes. One thing I was going to ask you real quick. First of all, does anybody else from the board have questions for him?
Yeah, I have a quick question. How does it work? I see you raised a lot of the fees, and you've got people reserving before we pass the new fees. Do you just assume the new fees, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, we just assume the new fees, I mean, kind of
Okay.
formality at this point. So we tried to make our fees on par with everything else in the area, so some stuff went up considerably, but we found out we were the cheapest campground, cheapest marina, basically on Cuba Lake or anywhere near Cuba Lake, so we had to raise some things up.
And I do appreciate that you've got a split schedule between the residents who are paying
Yeah.
taxes and the folks who are coming in and giving our residents a break on
Yeah.
using our facilities. Thank you.
Anything else? One thing I'd like to work on this year, and this all comes up, I mean, I think it happens for a reason, is that we have our sensitivity training for all the boards. I'd like to get an SOP standard of operation, or, for standard operation procedure for instance, Jenna, Jesse, anybody where there is a hostile person, what do they do? They come in the office, they're upset for whatever reason, what does she do? Is there a buzzer she can hit? Sometimes she's there alone. Is there someone she can call? Is there somebody that says, excuse me, and she goes out the back and gets hold of somebody and goes over to the court, pounds on the door where it's safe because the door is always locked. Same thing with Jesse or someone who's hostile. Do you take it? That's one reason why we have the safety petition, but for the clerks. But what does she do in this case? I know she handles the public very well, but I just want to make sure that she has this in future reference. This is what you do, and go from there. I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No.
I'm simply saying that this is something I think we should address. So at least she's aware, just like Jesse's aware, just like perhaps Sue is aware. Okay, what do I do in case? Do I go to the department head right now, because normally they're not alone?
Right.
Sometimes they are.
Right. Luckily for us, the people coming in our door are coming in to do things they want to do versus what they have to do or have to pay.
Right.
So we're in a little different situation than most of the other offices here. Our office is the only office not outfitted with panic buttons, to my knowledge, and I don't know why that never was.
Like that's what give you a homework assignment.
Yay.
I'm just
Yeah, I
concerned, and also for her as her protection, what should I do in case somebody is either rude to me or whatever? Not that it would happen, but it will happen eventually, probably.
I think in my 15 years here, it's maybe happened once, maybe twice. So, and those I talked my way out of pretty well and calmed the person down. But other than that, I mean, it's a fairly common environment to work in.
Okay.
Not to say that someone coming into a different office couldn't come into our office. Yeah.
Well, because we have court, we're very concerned about the overflow.
Right. Security's always been an issue with people coming in and out of the front door for court, and people are irate when they have to pay taxes sometimes, and it's just.
Is that right, Jeff? A little concerned.
I don't know, my people are pretty.
So far. So, I mean, I don't know why our office was never outfitted with them. That was a decision made by a previous board, so I don't know. But I do agree there should be a procedure for her to follow.
Is there also one in the code office?
Code office may not have either. I don't think so.
I know because I was in my last office. Very close.
Okay. So
Yeah, I am 100%.
Is the board okay with this to investigate this?
Yeah, but I would feel more comfortable having a procedure in place.
Okay. Good then.
All right.
Hi, Mike. Mike Stigger's next, and then we'll go on to cricket. Are you still the chairperson?
I am. I want to thank you all for having me. We were taking over the town of Hector under my chairmanship, so you should be prepared.
Are we still in the gates?
Okay. So, yeah, well, we get to that in a second, actually. Again, thank you for having me. I want to welcome Rob to the town board. Congratulations. I look forward to working with you. You're joining a pretty good board here, I think. And I will come every month to try to dazzle you with whatever's going on at the county. But, so as you may have heard, I am the chairman of the Tompkins County Legislature. So I'm just the interim chair. I think it sounds better than temporary chair, so come on with it. So what happened? First I want to say, nothing to worry about. Wheels are going to keep spinning. We have an excellent staff, 700 people or thereabouts. I've just been going to a lot more meetings, which is good too. It's nice having the county legislator from Lansing actually be the chairperson, because I'm getting in a lot of meetings, and you know, we're talking a lot about Lansing issues. And why Lansing issues? Because frankly, the Lansing issues are basically everybody's issues. We've been bringing up things like HABs. I mean, that's a big issue for us here in Lansing, big issue for everybody. But so it's been interesting going to Cornell and talking to folks about things like that. We're setting up a lobbying day to Albany because we're going to NISAC. Some people are anyway. And I was able to kind of get the data center in our lobbying efforts there. And everybody agreed that's a great idea, really, right? Because that's something that doesn't cost the state any money. All they need to do is give us the power allocation. So that got on the agenda for talking about. What happens here? So it's kind of odd. Every year, you know, we have to elect new people, new chairman, new vice chair. It usually goes pretty well. This time it did not. This time, so they, you know, made me the temporary chair, which is very nice. I then called the vote for the chairperson. That deadlocked at 7-7. I called it again. That deadlocked at 7-7. So I said at that point, okay, there was some disagreement about the vice chair and that vote. We moved beyond that. I just basically then ran the rest of the meeting. Held the vote again, deadlocked at 7-7. I kept asking people if they wanted to recess to see if they could kind of work something out in a caucus. They did not want to do that. So then I held the vote again, 7-7 deadlocked, and that was basically it. Then I tried to adjourn the meeting, and that deadlocked at 7-7. Oddly, not as easy to end that as you would think. Because you read through Robert's rules, and it's like, yeah, there's really no way to kind of do that. You actually don't have to have a vote, though, to adjourn a meeting, which now that I know that, this is good. If there's no more business before the body, you can just say, okay, adjourn the meeting, which is kind of great. So I know that in case this happens again, but I don't think it'll happen again. I expect them to work this out. I don't know if they'll work it out by the next meeting. So I'm going to run the meeting, the next one too. And then at the end of that meeting, I'm going to hold a vote again, and we're going to see where it goes. If they don't have a candidate that can pull 8 votes, because that's what you know, it's 7-7. You actually need 8 votes. If they don't, I'm just going to start filling committees. They'll probably be very similar to what we have now. No reason to kind of reinvent things. But I'm going to ask people, what do they want to change in the committees, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm working pretty closely with Jason, the county administrator, on things we go forward with. And basically it's setting priorities, and we're not going to make any giant changes while we're in this kind of flux. So as I told Martha Robertson, I have the job for 2 weeks. I'm going to do the best job that I can in the 2 weeks that I have. And at the end of the day, people will say, you know what, that guy stepped up. He did a great job. And frankly, if I'm in it for longer, I'll do that for longer. It's, you know, I can make my schedule work around it. So it'll be fun. Let's see. Oh, the 2 people running, Mike Lane of Dryden and legislator Ann Kellis of Ithaca. They're both running. And Shauna Black over in Key Heights, she's running for vice chair. And she's the only one that's announced for that too. So other county business that happened. So we did vote on plastics. This is just the county. We've decided we are going to move away from using single-use plastic at the county level. We should be, if we're going to tell other people to do it, we really should do it ourselves, right? We're not going to be throwing out the plastic we have now. We're going to wait till that ends, and then we're going to start replacing those things through paper. And then we're going to see too, the big thing that concerns me, and this is something Julie Kiefer always pushed too, was she always wanted to ban single-use plastic water bottles. While that sounds awesome on its face, a lot of the studies I see is when you do that, then people switch to drinking soda or other canned beverages. I don't really see that as a good pair-off, especially at places like airports or where there's people traveling. So I'm hoping that the county will take a closer look at that, because there's something, I don't disagree that, yeah, you can bring your own water bottle, great. But then again, people don't, and that means they're gonna go drink a Coke instead of water. I don't see the societal benefit, I guess, in that. November sales tax report, we're doing great. I mean, really, up 6.4% compared to a year earlier. People are clearly buying things. We're up 4% for the whole year over 2018, so that's kind of nice. Should help us with our budget next year. We did vote to, we always charge, we're authorized to do 4% automatically. And then the state, we get another 3%. And then we have to vote if we want to boost it another percent. The state always lets us do that. Some people argue, you know, like Glenmore doesn't vote for that ever. He doesn't like, you know, taxing people more. I always vote for this. My explanation is basically, we have a lot of transient people. Transient, I don't use that as a bad word. They're here for a little time and then they go on. But it makes sense to have them pay if we can make them pay into our tax base. And that's why I think it is. It definitely relieves some of the pressure off of the property taxpayers from people who are enjoying our area and are only here for a short time, and it definitely helps us do all the services for the people that live here and are going to live there after these folks have left. So that's why we do that. I do disagree with taxing fuel oil and natural gas and other things. Heat's kind of important. I kind of look at it like food, so I bring that up every time this load comes in. Went to the airport business after hours. It was really nice. About 200 people there. The airport's beautiful. If you have not been there, you should go. It is. Mike Hall had a vision. I think the vision is a good one. This is really, it's an airport. You can land a plane there. I fly out of there a lot. It's great. This is also more of a community space, though. If you have children, you can go there. You know, park. You can get a cup of coffee over at Ithaca Coffee, which is down in the terminal, and there's both sides, the secure side and the non-secure side. You can get something to eat at either side. There's a little playground there for kids. If you're an active duty military, there's a little area for you. You can go. And, it's just got a lot there. And say you want to have a meeting up there. You know, if you want to have this meeting up there, there are conference rooms. You can have a meeting in the conference room. It's probably big enough to host everybody that's here. Just putting that out there. But it is it's a very nice space. I highly recommend it. There are 4 jet bridges now. I mean, if you were to take a large airport and shrink it down, that's what you have. And 21st century airport, and you know, heated through you know, not fossil fuels. So it's they were able to get the money and the funding to do that with heat with the ground source. And the customs facility.
It's a geothermal.
It is, and that was something that everybody seemed to like, and that was they were able to get the funding for it. That was the critical piece. And the customs facility is going to open up this spring, so you'll be able to fly to the Yankees game in Toronto, turn around, and fly right back there. If you want to charter Forgot aviation. What else? So I went to Cornell a couple of times over the past week. We talked about a lot of things. There are things that will definitely overlap. TCAT, while the county doesn't run TCAT, we're a partner. Cornell's a partner. The city of Ithaca is a partner. They're talking about this $55 million new facility. I talked to the mayor about that today too, the mayor of Ithaca. And it's a big price tag. I mean, there's really no way around it. I don't know if the price tag needs to be that big. I mean, they're talking about a facility that can cover all the buses, you know, all the time. Kind of like what they have now. I don't know if we need that, but we'll see where we go from here. I did bring up NYSEG at the meetings with Cornell because they're interested. Obviously, they have a lot of land up at the airport and a moratorium. NYSEG was actually very communicative. They said they had a solid response to the RFI that they had put out earlier. So by solid, they said it was much more responded to than the one they had earlier. They expect to have an RFP this spring. Ed and I talk about this often, so it's not something that's fallen off the radar. We will definitely keep you all when we hear things. They're moving ahead downstate, so it'll be interesting to see what they decided to do upstate with NYSEG as opposed to the gas company downstate. So, did ask Cornell too since I was there. I asked them about the orchards. I know that's something that's come up at your meetings. They do not have any plans, they say, to sell this. They're not saying that they're not going to sell it, but they're like, there's no real push to sell it. And they said, you know, listen, we'll let you guys know. And they really do want to work with, I think they want to keep it an orchard, was my general takeaway from it. And so we'll see. Yeah, they're pretty good. I know Jeremy up there too. I'll let me know if there's something going on. But there's no plans right Again, we talked about harmful algae bacterium. Really, that really was a consistent theme. There's some people that want a watershed, somebody to look over the watershed. The problem with that is you just have a lot of towns involved. I mean, it's the whole lake. They do have one up in the north area of the north end of the lake over Geneva for Seneca Lake. Maybe if we were to look at a model like that, we could do it. But it was surprising. I reached out to both Reed's office and Helmy's office. Helmy's is a big issue for Helmy. She's working on it. She told me about the other people, the watershed person up in Geneva. So if that's a model that anybody wants to go ahead with, we can do it. But the big thing was what Reed said. This really is a national issue now. It's no longer, it's not the Finger Lakes. It's not, it's really all over the place. And Reed, a lot of people said, oh, it's the nutrients that are in the lake, it's the runoff. Actually, they're like, the new studies are coming out, and they don't really know what's causing it. I mean, it's really kind of a mystery. So there is a lot of federal money flowing into that. I alerted Cornell. There's like $300 million federal dollars that are being spent on this. I didn't know how much Peace Cornell was doing. I don't know what work they're doing, but they really do seem like the natural thing. The land grant college, they've got cows, they know farming. If farming is a part of it, I'm pretty sure Cornell can figure it out. So they were thankful for that. Hopefully they'll keep working on it. But I know Bolton Point, obviously, is going to be involved in the drinking water. So that is about it. But you have another week, and I'm sure. So if there's anything that you guys
Don't go away.
Do
Anybody have any
we know
questions?
when the bridge is going to be replaced?
That is a fine question. No.
People ask me that all the time.
You know, I'll call.
And
I actually,
it was
I
supposed
was
to be, but we think it's 2021
Can I
now.
interject?
Sure.
If you look at the website now, they want to start in the fall of 2021.
Which bridge are you talking about?
I think you're talking about the big one.
Big one, okay.
The big
Okay. Now, they're already reaching out to people along there on the other side of the bridge to see if they can park their equipment, things of that nature. Their window to demo it, I think, is in February because of the environmental issues. So they have to get this thing, get all their ducks in a row and knock it down then, otherwise we're looking at the next year. They hope to get this.
2022.
Yes, February, they hope to get this, you can look it up on the web, functional, they may have changed in the last couple of weeks, functional, okay, whatever that means, by the end of 2022. That's what they're hoping.
The tear down is the hardest part right now. They're not going to dump it down. They're going to carefully pick it up. And it's a
Yes.
suspension bridge, so when you pick it up, it lifts up and changes the weight on the bridge. It's all crumbling and crippling. So it's a real nightmare to pick that bridge up and not have it all crumble into the creek.
So that's my story, okay?
You got a little update on that, not on the bridge per se, but that stretch of road. We were contacted about putting a light on the crossing where the school is over the Myers Road. And I said I had been working on getting a crossing guard there, but this idea is better. So I called DOT about it. They said, we're doing a study there because of the crossing guard thing. So they're already doing a study, and now they're going to include the light in the study. So maybe we will eventually get something that looks more like a, hey, there's a crosswalk here with kids on it. You should probably slow down. Because I always think when you're coming down the road, when you cross the bridge and then you're going toward the school, you really come up on the school really fast. And that crosswalk, a lot of families have moved on the Myers Road and seen right time, so they could do that. So something else that happened this week.
The bridge is down, we're not going to need them.
I know. But then eventually, the bridge will be fixed, especially if they use this one local construction firm.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I know the county is working really hard on this convention center downtown. I
Yes.
was wondering if you could talk about how it would affect Lansing.
Sure. It'll affect Lansing in effect more the village, obviously, because that's where the hotels are, right? I mean, they're building it downtown because that's where a lot of hotels are. The goal here, and it really is a convention center, they're talking about be able to fit 900 people. And it's going to go right with the Green Street garages. It's a part of a larger project, so there's about 200 affordable housing units supposedly in this. There'll be that, there'll be another apartment garage too. Green Street needs to be replaced now. That's the project. They've got about $5 million in state money that they were just awarded. They need hopefully another $3 million to kind of get them.
Two's the number.
Let's see. So Anyway, that's what they're working on. I did contact Tom Reed's office about that too. If it is not owned privately, if it is owned publicly, which is the talk, there might be some money available for the vets. So we'll see about that. I'm working on that. But we will get, I'll know a lot more on this on Tuesday, because they're coming, Gary is coming in to give, Gary runs the DIA. Ferguson. And he is coming down to give a whole proposal on Tuesday, just to kind of lay it all out. But like I said, 900 people, convention center. The goal here is to offer people a space, obviously, so it's self-funding too, but so that we can get people in the city and in the hotels during the week, right? Because the weekends are fine. It's during the week that you have a problem. We're not the only cities looking at this, right? Corning, I found out, is looking at building one of these as well. There are it's an amazing number of associations that are actually in New York State. Firemen's associations, police associations. They all need places to gather, and frankly, I think it's kind of, Tompkins County is nice. So how it will affect Lansing would be, basically spillover. If we can get some of those people to go there, and presumably, you're going to get overflow in the hotels up here. That would be the guess. But we're not on the hook for it either. To make this thing go forward, they're pushing something called a TID. So basically it's a tax, but the only people that are going to pay that tax are the hotels in the city.
Is the bed tax?
It's additional. It's similar though, yes. Because there was another thing floating around where we would add a 1% to the 5% hotel tax. That has met with some resistance. Even the state has voted against that in other cities and other towns, but we're not sure if they will vote against it. In our instance, if they did want to do that, I would say we could sunset on it, so when this thing is up and running and mostly paid for, that you don't keep paying this tax. But that doesn't, I don't know if that's really going to go anywhere. They really seem, the TID would be easier to do, it's just through the city, and frankly, the city places are going to benefit the most. And a lot of the hotels down there got benefit from the IDA when they wanted to open. They got some, 10-year abatements, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, if we're going to put heads in your beds over the week, that wouldn't be such a bad thing to assess.
Okay, any other questions? I'm kind of curious, and I'll wrap this up real quick. I'm kind of curious why, since we have DOT up here, and we have TCAT up here, why they wouldn't go to the convention center up here, because you have the airport up here, and you have Route 13, main artery up here, as opposed to, if you've ever been down Green Street, it's not the easiest to get to. But having said that, is what it is. I'm not going to belabor that. What I am going to do, though, is ask the chair of the county, because this is a very minute matter compared to somebody else. One more thing, sales tax, thank you so much. It is a huge revenue stream for the town, 1.5 million. So 8% and, sales tax, that's important to us. We got to share that. It's harvest time here with our taxes. Okay, we're going to do about 14 million this year. 70% is going to go to the county. We get nothing for that. We don't get reimbursed. In fact, we have to pay the postage $1,198. So we pay the county for the right to collect your money and give it to you for free.
Right.
And the taxpayers have to pay for a person or persons to do that. It's not a criticism, it's a conversation. The conversation is, to the chair, how can the towns and villages that have to do this and do other services for the county, how can they get reimbursed for that somewhat for our time, energy, and effort? Because if you had to do it yourself, you would be probably out of pocket, and how many times to do that? Just saying, it's all business.
No, and that's fine. That's exactly the kind of, that's why I come to these, so that you can tell me. And I'll give you a call tomorrow, and we'll figure that out.
I'll just point out that the folks who collect sales tax, they keep a small percentage of that for the bookkeeping work to collect it and do that. That's part of the state law.
Now, we're talking two different things.
I know, I'm just saying, there's
Yes.
a precedent for this in the way the state does sales tax.
So definitely a comparison.
Yeah.
All right.
That's just, once again, it's just, 26% of our tax liability is the county.
Right.
If someone has to pay taxes. And it's just like, okay, we're doing this. I understand we have to do it anyways for us. I get all that. But it'd be nice to give us a little stipend to say, here, for all your efforts, this is what we need to have a little bit of reimbursement. So
Okay.
just keep that in mind, okay?
I'll definitely keep it in mind, and I'll call you tomorrow on it, but you know, it was interesting, because we had this talk down at the city too, about, consolidation of services. They wanted to do the sheriff, not that they were merging the sheriffs and the police department down there, but they literally took one of the hardest things. It's like talking about mergers of school districts. It just never goes over well, I mean, sometimes it happens, but it's pretty hard to do. But there was lower fruit for consolidation of services. I mean, we did it with assessment.
Sure.
You could possibly do it with, the city certainly could do it with tax collection. That would be,
Or just give us a little,
and stretch it out to the towns, right? Or not kick it out, or not charge it, or there's something I think that.
I mean, rather than give us 5,000 grant that we have to apply for every fight over here, just give us $5 grand to do it, have a nice day.
That was my goal. I couldn't get there.
Amen.
Oh my God, I got what I could do, but.
Just since I got the chair here, I might as well have this conversation, right? Okay, we're all good?
All good.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Cricket, you're up. Item 14 is our highway superintendent report.
We've been loving those ice storms every weekend.
Oh, yeah, they've been great, they just saw by the salt bills. So anyways, I, apologize, I'm a month behind, wishing everybody a happy holiday. Guess you probably enjoyed it. We had a little different this year than our last one. But anyways, just, hey, I just want to reach out and welcome Ron Lynn to the board. Certainly want to thank the board for, last year's support as always, for, a lot of good support there. We got a lot of, besides the projects, wrapped up. Lots more to come this year. Certainly was here. Wanted to certainly thank her for her time. But anyways, moving forward, we're kind of getting things situated around, looking at spring work. Hopefully it gets here sooner than later. We deal with snow first. The only thing I have is obviously we've been working, we had the needs assessment stuff for our building and things there that's been in the works. I just, had a lot of conversation with CJ. She's been putting some stuff together as far as looking at, kind of where we go next or whatever on that. So kind of just sticking out there to the board, possibly looking at, allocating some funds to kind of proceed forward with that, to kind of keep working on this capital plan for that, to see what we can maybe put together. But, appreciate the discussion, ongoing with it. Hopefully maybe, for this at some point, it's not going to necessarily be an easy pill to swallow, but see where it all goes.
Anything else? Any questions or comments?
Just appreciate that every time it snows, you guys are out there cleaning it up. It's, by 8 in the morning, you guys have been by my house. And, it's not one of the busiest streets, and I appreciate it because every time you're out there.
Right. Well, like I said, I certainly have to, thank the crew. I mean, they do a great job, and fortunate to have a good bunch of people. So, thank you.
So please stay there for a minute before CJ. We're going to have a little discussion here, and nothing has to be decided. This is simply just an FYI for us to have more serious discussion next month, but I want to give the board enough time. There is in your packet a draft for request for proposals. There is no monetary obligation for this. This is something for us to discuss at our next meeting. I did reach out to Municipal Solutions on schedules as far as amounts go if we need to do a renovation with our admin part. Rule of thumb, this is not written in stone, it's called $400 a square foot. The cold storage part would be about $200 a square foot. You look in here as far as the numbers go. I will go as deep or as shallow on this tonight as you want to. We can do slow on this if you want, because this is the first time you've seen this, even though we've been working on this for a while. The money is at about 2.7% right now. If you're going to do something, this is the time to have a serious discussion. This obviously would have to go to referendum for people to vote on, and if they don't want to do it, then the will of the voters has spoken. But in all fairness, I think this is something that we should at least attempt to do to see where these numbers go. Our tax rate is reasonable. Our tax rate could get bumped. For every penny that we raise it, it's gone up. It's now $14,550. So if we raise the tax rate 10 cents. I'm not opposing that. That's $145,500. So when you look at these figures here, you look at what the debt service is, that'll give you an idea of where these things are. Because I want to make people are in a comfort level, also we're not going to blow through the budget, and then we're not going to be broke in 2 years. That's not the point. This is either a 30 or a 25-year commitment, depending on what type of work we're doing. If it's new construction, I believe it's 30. That explanation also is in there for you to read at your leisure. These are things we don't have to comment on now, so we're pointing them out. And if it is renovation, it's 25 years. You can stretch it out. These numbers here are very conservative. They're based on 25-year debt service, not 30. So we're looking at a worst-case scenario. The thing is that we want to talk about, though, is that it's been 51 years since this has been built. And once again, the invitation is when you're available, Craig will take you around, show you what's up there, and you can make that decision for yourself as far as what we're talking about this to educate yourselves. The other thing is that, once again, this RFP for this request for proposal for the renovation, that is something that if we move forward on, it is a financial commitment to do, okay? And we're looking at probably what, what's the rough, 10% of the cost of the project. You do a $3 million project, it's $300,000. So, once again, there's no obligation, but if you just go, and it would roll into the scope of the work. But at the end of the day, this is something to seriously consider going to move forward with this. And I don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do you do the proposal first, or do you say, geez, can the town handle so much? And I'll say one more thing, and this is next month, not this month, to have you digest it. We are going to entertain a resolution to have certain entities, like the Water District, pay for part of this because it is part of the service to them. As we've done in the past with the skid steer, with the rubber tracks, that's only used exclusively for Water District. That's why it came from their district and no one else's. So at one point, Cricket's going to have to document how much actually is water here. But we can justify this moving forward, and we can have that discussion. Nothing has to be done next month, but I'll go as fast or as slow as you're comfortable with. And if you say, Ed, we don't want to do this, I got a lot more stuff on the plate here we can move forward with. But I said, this is something I think that, as I said in the last meeting, we've addressed the needs of this building, they're done. We've addressed the needs of the cold storage building up there, now it's done. We've addressed a lot of these different things, we're done. We've addressed the needs of the reserves for the Great All, which is that $500,000 behemoth waiting to be purchased at some point down the road. It's done. And that's something we may want to move some water money also in the reserve for that, so it's completely done. Those things are done. So we've accelerated this because we had a great mortgage tax last year and a great sales tax last year. Those are all things that fall in the line. So now it seems we're going to go after the big boy, which is the highway department. Okay? So feel free to ask them questions, ask the highway department questions. We got through the agreement for 3 years. Life is good. Anytime they say it's a fair agreement when you negotiate, that's remarkable. I've never heard, I always thought it was an oxymoron, but they're all happy. Morale's high, and Cricket, you're doing a great show, so are you, Mikey. So you're all good.
Excellent.
I'll be thinking of you tomorrow when we're scraping the roads again. Cha-ching, cha-ching. So we're all good with that, okay? All right.
Thank you.
You bet. So having said that, we're going to segue into your part now. We got other stuff to talk about. A lot of these are going to be planting seeds for next meeting. But go ahead.
Hey, yes, good evening. Hi, Board. I will omit my entire report and stop reading that verbatim. So if there's questions on that specifically, please let me know. I'd just like to highlight one key piece, or two key pieces, I should say, as part of the land use policy work program. That's on the second page of that report I sent along. The county declines to participate in the land use ordinance update, which probably surprises no one, given their reluctance to intrude too far into municipal land use matters. But very graciously, they did agree to work with us to prepare a best practices report on utility scale solar. This is something I thought might be helpful for not just us, but town of Dryden and really anyone who's sitting next to the bulk transmission lines, because we're kind of all in the sights, shall I say, of solar development. And I've written a little bit there about the areas I've asked them to work with. So Darby Kiley at Tuckahoe County Planning will be working on that report be meeting with her this week to kind of start fleshing out what the scope of that could look like. And the great news is I have a lot of stuff to pass on to her that I really, unfortunately don't have the time to dig through and synthesize for you. So it's really wonderful to have their assistance. And to follow up on that end, we are still getting inquiries about the local law, the draft solar and wind, the local law, and where that should go. To that end, we do have a firm who is interested in coming and speaking to you at the next meeting. The firm is EDF Renewables. They're responsible for some of the largest solar projects in the state, if not the country. They're building a 350 megawatt project right now in western New York, I want to say Niagara County. And I believe that's an association with the Somerset plant, although I can't be sure. But they would like to come and talk to you. I've spoken to them a number of times, but I did want to ask whether you even want to entertain the idea of hearing what they had to say about their projects and essentially seeing the type of materials that they would be presenting to you. Were they ready to move forward with an Article 10 a large-scale solar, utility-scale solar project. So just want to get a sense from the board about whether you'd welcome that type of interaction.
CJ, do they think there's a potential for them to be building something here?
Yes, yes they do. Yeah. They're under fairly strict confidentiality agreements, my understanding of my conversations with them, but they do feel that they're getting close. And so they do want to come and talk with the town because they certainly, and I don't think anyone wants to see a kind of some kind of a reactionary approach to this kind of planning. I think being upfront about the type of projects that we're looking to have and not looking to have, I think the moment has come. And it's here. So I think that it'd be worthwhile to hear kind of what they have to say and then kind of go from there. And then hopefully county planning can really help us accelerate, shall we say, the best practices report. So we have, really a better idea of what we're getting into. And I'd really like to get that information synthesized for you. Because there are, as much as we've talked about some of the drawbacks and we've talked to a degree about some of those. We haven't talked too much about some of the benefits. We haven't talked really that much about things like host community agreements. And for the most part, this is what solar companies, and they're fairly savvy on, municipal budgets and the municipal financial constraints, and they do recognize that direct payments to the town via host community agreements can often help the way towards having their projects done. So that's something that I'm having county planning look into, and we'll let you know kind of what happens from that report. So
I would like to hear.
You would like to go? And I see yes.
When's the county going to be able to give us a report? Because I think if we got this report before hearing them, it would give us information to be able to ask questions on. But I don't know the time.
Oh, sure. And I'm going to meet with Darby tomorrow, Thursday? Yeah, okay, yeah, tomorrow afternoon to kind of get a scope and timeline. So I could, based on what I hear from her, I could push them off another month. They asked to come in February, or we can try to kind of juggle them around the same time maybe. But I'm not sure what county planning else has their work plan, so I will ask Darby to accelerate.
Yeah, because I think having more information before they come gives us more information to be able to talk with them about more intelligently, if that timeline can work.
How's the rest of the board feel about that? You okay with that? Okay. Let me use that as a segue.
Okay.
Is that we have Jay Franklin coming next month. And he's going to talk about two things. One of them does not pertain to this, which is the exemption for homeowners if they improve their homes. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is to discuss what the tax ramifications are for solar on this. And there's a lot of information out there. Number one, there's only so much capacity in the wires. And I think don't quote me on this, but I think it's around 300 megawatts. Number one, that's it. Somebody plops something down and they zing 300, but that's it. No one else can tap into it, type of thing. That's the limit. The other thing is to seriously look at these host community agreements, because this is a direct, besides the pilot, okay, which benefits all the taxing entities here at the school also. This host agreement, they would pay us so much per megawatt directly to the town, and only to the town. So these are things that we can look at. If we think we're being bombarded by this, and we can always put a moratorium on it and tap the brakes. That's okay too.
Yep.
So I'll leave that up to the board to digest. Once again, we'll have more information from Jay. You know, when in a lot of these projects, from meeting with this one individual, sometimes it's 3 to 4 years before they even start to go. And there's a lot of questions that are unanswered as far as, okay, you want 300 megawatts, that's, do the math. That's 1,500 acres. Where's the 1,500 acres? And so one of the questions we've asked one gentleman, can you downsize it? Can you downsize it? Have you reached out to other places that are in the IR, for instance, that this, you don't have to worry about prime farmland? We have other stuff that you can move away from that. Have you talked to Cargill? Have you talked to the power plant? Have you talked to the airport in the IR? Those are the things to have those discussions. And I don't know if it fits their business plan, but maybe they're going to have to modify it. I don't know. But I'm not going to be personally put in an uncomfortable position until we're comfortable moving forward with this, because as you know, all these solars have pilots. They all do. So anyways, those are enough information, so I'll cross it off my list for you to look for next.
Can I ask about Jay Franklin's presentation? I know there's a whole list of exemptions that the town can do, and some towns do some, and others, it's like 40 or 50 of them. Could he bring us the whole list, and we could, you know, at least discuss what possibilities there are? I know we do some of them, some...
We're not talking about solar now, we're moving back to the exemptions.
The exemptions, yeah.
Well, I think it's important that we do this. One of the things is that we've already done the one for the farmland, that if you put a solar factory, lack of a better word, which it is, let's call it what it is, on your land, you don't get the ag exemption. It's now industrial, it's now a business. But these are things, yes, I mean, if CJ wants to reach out to them, I see no reason why we can't, just for our own educational purposes, see what they are, and maybe those are things that we may want to pare them down to see what's there.
He has a whole spreadsheet that shows what the different exemptions are, which ones Lansing's doing, and if he could get that to the board maybe a week before our meeting so people could have a chance to review it, I think we could have a really good,
Yeah, I'll shoot.
That should be easy enough because I've seen the list, I have it somewhere in the box.
Okay.
I'd love to have that full discussion because there's a lot of things we might want to discuss.
Sure, just so I'm clear about the understanding, you'd like him just to bring the list, not necessarily to discuss all of the list.
Well, if he sends it to us in advance.
I don't mean to be obtuse, I'm just...
Yeah, if he sends it to us in advance, we can all look it over and think, hey, can you tell us more about this one? And he can talk about them on his own. He knows them all over.
I think we should give him enough heads up because he is planning on just doing those 2 subjects.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
But that doesn't mean he can't come back and talk about other ones later, because the main ones right now is the exemption for the homeowners and the solar. It's not minimizing these other ones, but that doesn't mean we can't have those ongoing discussions through emails or whatever and come to some decision down the road. It's almost like a policy renewal type of thing, you know, are we going to revamp it? So
yes.
I think it'd be time well spent, but it's just a matter of what's your time frame before that.
Okay, and not to belabor the question, but it's okay then for the EDF renewables folks to come and speak with you at the next meeting, if you'd like.
I would, if at all possible, I'd like to see what the county's saying first, but I don't know what their timeline is.
Okay,
Can we push those back to March? Would that be?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Would that be,
you'd like to have the best practices report before they come? Okay.
Right, if we can.
Got it, okay. Or at least some
A draft or
textual-
something, yeah.
Okay, got it. Because that leads me, a segue to my next piece, which is my apology for the training confusion, which is at the last meeting in December, I thought that you wanted to have all of the town employees receive the training, which is why I delayed it until the first week in February, so not to inconvenience the clerks who are already quite busy this month. That did not seem prudent. So nevertheless, the training with the Dispute Resolution Center confirmed with Francie that she's available to do that heated meeting and conflict resolution training on the morning of February 5th here at Town Hall. So anybody could attend if they'd like, but I've made sure to confirm with both of the folks who did not receive the training last time. So sorry that wasn't done sooner. I thought that we were trying to give the town employees the same training.
What time?
9 a.m., Wednesday, February.
In all fairness, I know you're taking this to heart. In all fairness, I think this turned out better than what we planned.
Oh, well, see.
You know, we've got some pretty good clarity on some issues that were very vague, so I think in the long run, I think this turned out okay.
Okay, and to that end, I would like to just also write up the policy for appointments moving forward, just so I'm aware of how you want that to play out in the future. So that's also on my list. I want to let you know that I'm in contact with County IDA as well as Southern Tier 8. They're our regional planning group, I guess is kind of a loose way to characterize that. They've let us know about a pot of money from the Appalachian Regional Commission, specifically to help coal power plants transition to something different. So we've kind of put together a loose affiliation of folks that could possibly apply for that grant. I think the portal just opened to be able to actually look at that request for proposal, but I've shared that with the Power Plant Future group of the committee. And so they're aware of it, and hopefully we can all participate in moving something like that forward, because that would be a significant amount of federal dollars to help them, especially for broadband. That's the key. That's what the feds want to fund with this money. And following up on that, and the folks from Cornell Cooperative Extension who are kind enough to send me that grant information, we are working with them on the Climate Smart Communities Initiative, which we passed last month. And the benefits just keep on coming. They took it upon themselves to reach out to Cornell City and Regional Planning, and they've managed to rope one of their classes into helping us with the natural resources inventory, which is so lovely, and very thankful to have that help from them. And so that will basically just complete itself, which is kind of nice. So very nice to have that happen. So I want to thank you again for passing that resolution. The CAC has quite a long checklist as part of the Climate Smart Communities, and they are vigorously getting through that. And they also selected 2 co-chairs recently. Tom Butler and Carrie Plicker-Lair will be the 2 chairs of that group. Coming up next month, also just want to give you a notice about Milton Meadows. They're almost ready for occupancy. We are seeking to resolve a couple stormwater issues across the way, and we'll probably ask for some kind of performance guarantee that will be coming before you. So I just wanted to let you know that that is in the works. Our ever-diligent stormwater management officer, Lynn Day, has made sure that they are getting the work done that they need to get done in order to receive those COs. And also a big shout out to Donnie Hunter for helping us do that and for always being calm. Also, coming up, I know you talked about halves a little bit. You may have seen the governor announce that Restore Mother Nature Act. It's a $3 billion bond anticipated to be put to voters this coming November, mostly revolving around habitat restoration and flood reduction. So we're going to make sure we continue to have good relationships with Finger Lakes Land Trust to be able to do good projects, maybe some additional land acquisition projects. Kind of as an aside note to that, I was appointed the chair of the County Planning Advisory Board with Leslie Schill as the vice chair. She's Cornell Planning, and so that's very exciting. Coming up next month also will be the policy memo on the changes to the IDA policy that we discussed last month, just to give you a sense of what the other policies are in the area or in the county, and the updates we might suggest. We sent along the map, but just want to make sure you've gotten the map, as well as the resolution to actually make the changes on the LED streetlights. You saw that whole packet of information, and hopefully you feel confident about moving forward. as well as a resolution to actually release the Parks, Recreation, and Trails Master Plan request for proposal. Now that we have a committee, thank you for appointing them this evening, we'll be able to put that to work, actually helping refine that request for proposal, making it even better, and helping us really select a consultant, hopefully mid-year. Also with that, we're looking to do the bid package for the town hall doors. I'm hoping to hear, hopefully next month, from JCAP about whether we got that grant. And that's kind of all part of our overall capital planning as we head into the kind of the first and second quarter of the year, along with the highway department building, which again, done some tours of. They certainly need to upgrade those facilities. And also they're going to need room for the vacuum truck we're planning to apply for. As an MS4 community, so we have obligations under the stormwater law to take care of our lands, essentially. We can apply for a vacuum truck and have it almost fully funded, and we're going to need to put that somewhere also. So there's a lot of equipment, obviously, that needs a home that just can't exist in the ether. So thanks for your support with that. And as far as the highway building goes as well, you may have heard through the Business Energy Advisors, the county program that's helping target energy efficiency in large buildings. They've created a special program just for Lansing and just for existing buildings. It's almost like, I called Andrea and she was like, hey, do you need help with this highway building? And so that's kind of cool. We can get up to $6,000 in consulting assistance at no charge. And I'm thinking this might be the consultant we would want to work with anyway. There's TJ Brown out of Buffalo, and they have done a significant amount of work on highway buildings. They've done the energy master plan for the buildings on the thruway, and so I think they could be a really wonderful asset to work on this project. So please take a look at that request for proposal. The highlighted areas in yellow, those are kind of the main focus pieces, and just hack it up and see if there's any changes you'd like to make. Also, I've heard some rumblings about concern about short-term rentals, so I don't know if that's something you want to start looking into or whether you just want a little bit of background information on. But there's some good zoning practice reports out there I could send you if you really want to dig into the Airbnb, as well as some information from Tompkins County Planning. Tom Knight, when he was there before he went to the city, did some really fantastic research on short-term rentals and the good, the bad kind of analysis of that. So let me know if you'd like to do that. And also, hopefully next month, and perhaps in March, in lieu of having help from the county, I'd like to apply to the Park Foundation. They have money specifically set aside for smart growth planning. So I'd like to apply for the stormwater plan for across the road, as well as get some funding to actually start tackling the zoning update. As I've come to realize, there's many projects in this 73 square miles that we have to look after, and getting a little assistance with kind of the nuts and bolts of the zoning piece. I already have some really fabulous consultants in mind. They're not cheap, but they do great work. So we're going to try to find a way to pay for that, and I don't think Lansing has really applied to Park Foundation for much. So I think we can really make a compelling argument there. So I'll just bring forward that intent to apply, and I think it will probably be for the March cycle. That way I can keep applying if we don't get it. Yeah, so it's kind of
my understanding is that the county is going to be doing a research project to try to figure out where the short-term rentals are throughout the county and share that with us. So getting that information would give us a better idea of how much it's impacting Lansing as a total. So I think looking for that information would be a good starting point. Milton Meadows has got a path that goes through it that stops in the middle of a tunnel right now. And that's our trail that's supposed to loop around, and so I'm wondering what's happening with that.
Yeah, see, we're going to remedy some stormwater issues.
So is that what's holding up the trail? Because it just ends in the middle of a puddle right now.
I am not sure that's the particular situation. I'm not familiar with, I haven't been out there.
I've been hiking on it.
Oh, okay, well.
That's why I know it ends in a puddle.
So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm not certain about this particular situation. I can ask Lynn to look into it, so let me add that to the list
So,
here.
one of the situations is, in our budget, we allocated, with Dave Eric's recommendation, to put some money aside for the town center storm water practice. I believe that's in the budget. This grant, obviously, we found money, that would be fine. The other thing is that, look over there, and is there any areas that are not draining that should be? Because they've either overgrown the ditches or they've been clogged or whatever. Those are chronic problems that I'll ask the gentleman that maybe, and you're gonna, yes, indeed, there you go.
It's
Boy, go ahead.
It does not end up, to clarify, it does not end in the puddle, it doesn't move all the way around. It is just wet, it's wet land.
Oh, there was fencing across it, you couldn't go past.
Unless the
When you
fence,
loop around the store, or around the septic thing and around, it does not connect to anything, it just stops.
they have changed the fencing around, that should not be.
This was January 1st, so I don't know if
Oh,
it's
yeah, no, that does loop all the way around.
changed. It totally loops around now?
Yes.
Okay. It was quite wet.
It is, that whole bottom section of the trail, if anyone's walked it, is always wet.
We had boots, that wasn't the issue. The issue was the fence that kind of stopped the trail.
Yeah, they may have changed it around at some point.
Otherwise, it was a nice trail, and somebody's been mowing it and taking care of it. It's just, it stopped.
Well, there's a whole lower area that says actually designated wet.
Well,
It
you
was.
may be talking about the silt fence that they had to put up for. was it-
No, this one was orange plastic things. The silt fence was there too.
Here's to keep people off your well. Okay. Anything else for any other board members? I'll comment on a few things real quick. Not. Milton Meadows, I went over today, nice walk. Eventually we'll get the sidewalk in. Very extremely, once the salt point gets there, which we're happy that the sidewalk's on that side as opposed to be on the other side. Talked to Maddie, she's the one of the people that is over there in administration. 2 3-bedrooms have been rented to Lansing people, with families where their kids go to school already in Lansing. And she's looking to also rent over there. So Lansing people are renting over there, and people that are already in the schools are renting over there. So this impact of the schools may be not such a drastic thing as people think it will be, because for a lot of Lansing people, they now have the opportunity to rent Milton Meadows, which is good. This bond that we're going to hopefully propose, we've had some bad luck in the past with one of them. Remember 1986 with the one, we had to do some creative this performance bond. So this one, we talked over for Milton Meadows, is that they need to do this stormwater mitigation. If they don't, that amount of money will go towards us and we will do it. And it won't be 36 years later. It was 86, that's where my math is. This was the one, as we all know, from Jack Young's property up there when it was owned by somebody else. And anyways, long story short, that's what that's about. What else? The Airbnb, these are things that have been kicked around for years here. The City of Ithaca has theirs, the Village of Two Guys has theirs, the Village of Lansing is working on theirs now. You can look at the paper tonight in Lansing Ledger. It's something that we need to consider. We also need to be thorough to say, how do you enforce it? And how do you enforce it? Well, those are all things that we can discuss. That's on our plate for this year at some point. But these are all things that are going to be circulating in the next few days, so people need to interject now. I'm not throwing stones at anybody here, and I'll say I'm as guilty as anybody else. We're going to try to get these resolutions all done at least a week ahead of time so people can look at them. So if they're not done by now, we'll do it next month because it puts a tremendous load on our clerks and on our attorney and everything else. I mean, I know, like with the invoices, we're doing better. That's okay. It's a conversation, not a criticism, as far as that goes. The vacuum truck, this is so helpful because you don't have to do a call order. You go over there right now, you don't have to see where the dig order is, where everything is, because it's like a shop vac on steroids. You can suck everything out, you can see everything. Otherwise, the guys have to wait. And this is something we can go through a grant. In all fairness to CJ, I've given her marching orders to find any amount of money we can in the universe, and she seems to be doing quite well because she seems to be finding these pots of money. So anyways, that's all I have at my end. Thank you so much, CJ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Packet, number 17, ag, there's nothing for Connie, though I think there's going to be a meeting here
Yeah, there's going to be.
November.
Well, there was a meeting, and I was going to talk about this, there was a joint agricultural planning board
Right.
meeting a week ago that, again, we're going over the ag district and in meticulous detail, what's this property doing. And it's really nice, the presentation that we're able to do now, in which up on the wall, you can see the map, you can get a overhead photo of it if you want to really look and see where's the fields and stuff. And it's made that kind of discussion so much better for both the planning board and the whole audience, because everybody in the room can see what everybody's talking about. And those presentations are great. They're so much better than rolled out maps on the table, which is the way we used to do it. And I really appreciate that.
So, having said that, I think there's a meeting here, I think
Monday,
February.
the first Monday in February.
Okay, yes, yes. So let's move on to item 18, motion to correct recreation supervisor's 2020 salary. It was the wrong, once again, my apologies to Pat. It was the wrong item mentioned. It was in the budget. It's at that 76 and change. Someone want to entertain a motion to, okay, Doug's second, and is there a second?
Sure. What went wrong? I didn't quite catch what was wrong.
We looked at the per hour and not the budget amount in
Okay.
there. It's different. Like I said, oopsie. So, and to Pat's credit, he made me painfully aware of that the next morning. So, wasn't that bad. No, okay. So having said that, once again, I mean, being on salary, I think we've done great this year as you transition. You have a whole new team there. You're doing double duty. I think you're doing a great job. And moving forward, you have some vacation you have to use up in the next 3 months. For carryover, which you will. He's now taking time off. It's like Lynn's taking time off. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Number 19 item is the resolution authorizing acceptance of bid, issuance of notice of award, and contract to Cuba Commercial Cleaning for Town Hall and Community Building Custodial Services.
I'll move it.
There's a second? Doug? Okay, Doug seconds it. Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Doug Day?
Yes.
Ron Mendoza?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Yes. Number 21, approve audit and budget modifications.
No.
No.
Skip.
We skipped 20.
Resolution, I guess we did, I'm sorry. Resolution approving temporary shed encroachment agreement for water tank lot number 38, Horizon Drive, and authorizing execution thereof. This is 18 inches, right?
That's what my understanding.
Yeah, it's at best 18 inches based on the survey.
How did this come up?
They decided to sell a lot and they resurveyed it and it showed a line different than what they thought it was, or identified that a shed that had existed for a long time was technically over the line.
Is this a shed that was so small it didn't go through building permit or something?
I don't really know the history of it.
No,
My
back then
biggest
wasn't
concern
necessary.
was, is it in a highway and does it impact any operations? It's outside of the fence, and it's only a temporary right to maintain it until they have to move it. Just, I don't know. My follow-up on it didn't reveal it was a problem, but Cricket's here. If it's an issue, he can let us know.
No, I mean,
It's been there for years.
yeah, I mean, it's a no harm in any way,
Yeah.
just kind of dead area or so to speak, so.
I know that the state came in and zinged the city of Ithaca for not charging for encroachments like this. This happened about 10 years ago, and they had to go through and look at every little porch step that stuck out on, how much they were charging for vendors to be on it. Is that going to be an issue here?
Not that I know.
Okay.
Temporary anyways, isn't it?
What's that?
It's going to be temporary anyways until they move it.
Right, it's not a franchise, so I'm
Does this
not
have-
sure what you're referring
Yep.
to when you talk about somebody getting zinged for instance, if you cross if you're a franchisee of some sort and you want to cross a New York State highway, New York State will charge you a fee annually to cross and use their land under Route 81. Well, that's not a good example because that's federal, but, right. So I think that those types of encroachments are different than the historical accidental ones, but I certainly can look into it.
And does this have a sunset on it? Are we approving this forever, or does it sunset?
Well, until the shed has to be repaired or relocated, or, I mean, yeah, it only exists for so long as the shed stays in that location. So if the shed stays there forever, then that 18 inches is theirs to use theoretically forever.
And we could not change that should our needs change? Are we giving this to them, and if our needs for the property and this thing is suddenly encroaching on something we need to do, could we go back and adjust this?
Probably,
Okay.
but
I'm not
they have the right
anticipating-
to maintain the encroachment, but the cost of moving the shed would be a drop in the bucket compared to the cost of building a new water tank. What other use would we have for the land, or?
Okay.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can add something to it that says, in the event we exercise the option to use the land or do construction, we can order it moved. We can try to add something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there again, like I said, it's kind of dead area where it's at. I mean, they've already doubled the size of the site here a couple of years ago when they built the second tank, and it wasn't an issue. Like I said, it's just kind of the way the land lays out there, so I mean, honest mistake probably on their part, thinking, you know, where the line really is, but no, I'm confident that what our needs coming before the shed has to be gone is probably will win.
Yeah, I just see us giving them a permanent right to this with no compensation, and if we should ever need to do something, we'd have to buy this right back from them maybe or something, and I'm a little worried about it without some kind of other sunset that maybe the town could put in, to say, if we need it, we'll give them, you know, X amount of notice, and the shed will have to be moved.
Well, if this is temporary, can you give them a time frame to say you have to take the shed out by X amount?
Sure.
Otherwise, it's null and void.
Sure, something like that. It's the permanent nature of this, in which if they keep maintaining their shed and not rebuilding it, they can keep it forever, and that doesn't seem like what we should do.
So what's a reasonable time frame you think for this in your experience, Guy? 6 months? A year?
10 years, you know, something.
10 years.
Well,
Could be, I don't know. I mean,
a
it's,
reasonable time frame for an encroachment agreement?
well, no, the fact that this is, unless I heard wrong, this is going to be temporary until they move the shed?
Until the shed is removed, reconstructed, or relocated.
Which means it could be forever.
Well, this is why that time frame comes in, a reasonable time frame. Even if you do it within, if you do it for a given year, that pretty well covers all extreme weather and good weather to do it.
Yeah, but my impression is they don't want to have to move their shed if they don't have to. And I'm suggesting that what might be better is language saying, if the town needs this land, the town has the ability to revoke this agreement, which lets them hold the shed there as long as they need to, because we don't need the land right now. But giving them a permanent encroachment seems like it's not a prudent thing for us to do. To have an escape clause would make me feel more comfortable.
Oh, no. I mean, it's 18 inches. At some point, like I said, it's because the shed's on town limits, right? And
Well, I guess the reality is, if you look at 18 inches, I mean, obviously, we have to abide by setbacks and everything is the same, so, I mean, the odds are, I mean, we as good neighbors, you know, aren't gonna go in there and build something right on the property line either, so,
Right.
so, you know, I don't know, I mean, like I said, 18 inches, it's back far enough, like I said, we doubled the size of that site with the second water tank, and it's still, you know, so, like I said, I don't know, I feel like 18 inches setback rules.
Unless you do a lot line adjustment,
Right.
right, and deed them to 18 inches?
I wonder if the easiest solution could be just adding something that if the town finds that they need it, we can ask for it back in a certain amount of time.
That's fine.
Yeah, rather than having a sunset on this, saying, in the event that the town finds that they need that 18 inches, we can give the owners X amount of notice. Would that be?
Sure, you can say whatever you want. You can demand whatever you want. You can refuse to grant the encroachment whatsoever and say, move it now.
I don't see a need for that, but I think giving us the escape clause would make me feel much more comfortable.
So if at the end of paragraph 7, where it says, the terms, rights, and obligations of this agreement are welcome for land, but will terminate at such time as the said shed is removed, reconstructed, or relocated entirely to or on the premises of the party in the first part. And then if you added the following, additionally, upon 90 days notice, the town may require a removal of the shed when a municipal project, plan, or need for use of such land arises.
Sure.
And I can ask the attorney to plug that in. I don't think they'd object. You just give them a 90-day notice and say move the shed.
Does that cover all concerns?
Yeah.
Do you want to see the shed?
Is it a she shed?
I'm not aware of the gender of the shed, but. Sure?
Yeah, I'd see the shed.
Little tiny thing.
Here's the shed. Here's the things. Here's the shed. Okay, does it make sense? Yeah. You could see how the shed is.
Yeah, sure.
Here's the fence there, the fence was put on the line. That's there. Then, there's the shed. Yeah. There's a little shed. Okay. I know you've seen the shed.
So,
So I could be more generous and say give them 180 days to move it, if that felt better. Because I'm not trying to squeeze them, I just want to give us an exit if we need it.
Well, I mean, it's a shed. I mean,
it's not a house.
what's the lifespan of a shed in the first instance? Is it less than the lifespan of the water tank? Yes. So, but you know, who knows? Maybe we have to add a chlorinator or something there because the harmful algae starts getting in the water supply. Who knows? Plague of locusts, it could be anything.
So we have a motion with said adjustments.
As amended.
As amended. Any further discussion then? Did anybody make a motion to accept this? We need
You
to
mean
get
the
that far.
resolution?
Yes.
I do not have a first
Sure,
or
I'll, as
second.
amended.
All right.
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion?
Can you hang on just for a second? So
Absolutely.
you're not amending the
Resolution. we're-
resolution, you're amending the encroachment agreement.
Yes.
Correct. Upon adding of that clause, and will be the ability, have the ability to sign it. So it would be the encroachment agreement as amended,
Which one?
ready to resolve.
Okay.
Comma as amended, comma. I'll just make sure it says that before I stick it under your notes.
Okay. Okay, Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Dave,
Yes.
Brian Winlosi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay, now we're on item 21, which is approved audit and budget modifications.
I'll move that.
Second it?
Any further discussion?
Andrew, you were the second on that?
Yes, I did.
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Doug Dave,
Yes.
Brian Winlosi,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Board member reports, I will make a gentle recommendation in the future that if you have a lot to report, just submit it so it's in the packet along with everybody else. I'm not looking at you when I say this. Okay? I'm looking at everybody when I say this, just because that's on record. If you have a lot, because it's all interesting, but sometimes when you do the minutes, it's not, it gets summarized, okay? So, having said that, Joe, you want to lead off, and hopefully hopefully all of us can keep it like we're in 3 minutes?
The only thing I went to was the planning board ag committee, and I already mentioned that, so
Good,
I'm done.
good. Andrew?
I went to my first environmental management council meeting.
Good.
I was impressed. A lot of very, very astute people who know their stuff, and I'm going to have to learn a lot of different things. It was good.
Okay.
I am happy to be here. And I went to the Association of Towns training last week and spent 3 days listening to riveting presentations by lawyers and accountants. And
One of them was mine.
yeah.
The inside joke was.
And I feel like I'm now an expert. But it was really helpful and definitely helped me to get my bearings quite a bit.
You had mentioned, real quick, that you had met somebody that had experience, I think it was you, right, Association of Towns, that was involved with one of our concerns here. My memory fails me right now. I thought that was the case. Maybe, I thought it was you. If not, okay. I'm getting older now. Okay, never mind. Okay. Doug? No? Okay. Deb?
The only thing I wanted to mention was, you might already touch on this, the tax warrant this year is a little over 14 million, and so far we've collected about 2.6 million, so we're moving along.
Excellent. Guy, you have anything?
Not that you haven't already covered.
Okay. Most of my comments have been segued into this. We try to do this as we, while they're here, as opposed to bring them back and forth, try to hopefully do it a little bit smoother. I did talk to Jerry at the power plant. The coal's all gone. They are, and once again, he's going to put together a timeline as far as people can see this thing before everyone meets. I guess it's on that board, but at least, I mean, please keep in mind, it's an independent business, and he has bosses he has to answer to. So obviously, a lot of these things, he's not being, he's not trying to avoid you, but sometimes he's not in a position where he can say certain things. So having said that, within the next couple of months, he will put together some sort of timeline. Some of this is very long between gaps. So I hope to have maybe a quarterly report from him to say, okay, here we are, besides the meetings, to do that. The other thing is I think there's 5 employees left there for right now, and we'll see where this goes. Hopefully this will pick up steam. The community is behind us as it was. That only helps. So we'll see where this goes. I have nothing else at this time. I was hoping for 9 o'clock. Do we have to go into a work session tonight? I mean, we've got a lot of homework assignments to do via emails and everything else the next month. If not, we need to go to executive session.
I think we did that already.
We did. I always have to be thorough, I guess. During the meeting then at 9:06?
9:04 on my clock.
So be it. It is about 2 minutes past. Good first meeting for everybody.
Oh, no, I'm in the wrong line here, sorry. I do have a form for everybody to sign on the highway agreement for the expenditure of highway monies. That was the resolution that was passed this evening.
Yep.
Everybody needs to sign both pages, please.
Hi, Dan.
So I have a